Sanguinius is my favorite loyalist Primarch. He's noble, level-headed, he would do anything for humanity, and he treats his sons fairly and even lets them voice their opinions and concerns, something you don't see from the rest of the Primarchs. And underneath that all, he's this vicious, violent beast just waiting to be unleashed. He's everything that you like about the rest of his brothers all rolled into one. I'm here to glaze Sanguinius, aka Mr. Vampire Jesus himself. But before we get into that, like the video, subscribe to the channel. We release a bunch of different types of content here, and if you don't, the great angel is gonna look at you of disappointment, which is probably worse than being flayed by Kurze. So for this video, I'm just gonna go down a list of cool things I like about Sang and cool things he did throughout his badass life and career. We're just here to glaze our dude of dudes, but we're not going to make him immune from any criticism or getting fun of, because if you take 40k too seriously, it just becomes way less fun, like most fictions. So we just try to keep it pretty light here. Oh, also spoilers for these books right here, or is it on this side of the screen? Spoilers for these books right here if you want to go into any of them fresh. First things first, and this is something that I've never seen another loyalist Primarch do, and that's stand up to the big E. When E-Man found Sang on Ball, he was trying to persuade him to join the universe's largest murder party, but Sang could close his eyes and hear the screams of a million worlds, which is one of the biggest red flags I've seen since Harley Quinn saw Joker catch a body for the first time. Sang would only agree if Big E agreed to leave Ball and his sister worlds alone. No Imperium, no Admech, no tourists, no giant golden monuments to the Emperor, because that stuff would totally mess up the Mad Max vibes they got going on over there. There is a Blood Angels recruitment facility, and they did take radiation medicine, because living on Ball is like playing Fallout 3 at the highest difficulty setting. Eventually you're gonna rat out. Crazily enough, Big E agrees to that, likely because he already knew Sang was gonna be like one of his most badass sons, even though the angel wings are one of the biggest red flags for an atheist since Fabius Bile and his staff. Also, I love the gaslighting here from Big E, like saying it's just like, well, hey dad, like what's up with the wings? Do my brothers have these? Are these a feature or are they a bug? And Big E's just like, you know what? I wouldn't even worry about that. Just get on the ship. The next thing is Sang's bromance with OG Horus. Horus and Sang were the two Primarchs with the best relationship, and it wasn't just because they were generals with the same test tube daddy. They behaved like actual IRL brothers. And I know about Ferris and Fulgrim. I love their relationship. And as far as I know, they're the only other pair, but we're not here to talk about those two weirdos. We're here to talk about a pair of Chads. Horus actually trained Sanguinius, who was chilling and operating with the Lunar Wolves before he got his full command over the Blood Angels. So Sang is basically an honorary Lunar Wolf, and he had a really good relationship with Horus's sons. He's like that cool ass uncle that stays at your house for a month and lets you eat junk food until he gets back on his feet. Don't tell mom. Also, this allowed him to speedrun the Vengeful Spirit during the events of Siege of Terra. He knew that ship inside and out, and it's because Horus taught him. And this is one of the best written chapters in the End in the Death Part 2, if you make it that far with that long ass novel. In The Great Angel and Fear to Tread, they have some really good dialogue with each other, and Sang kind of worked like Horus's like sage advisor. Even though Horus had been doing this stuff for longer, Sang seemed like he had more experience anyway. Horus also really listened to and cherished his input. Like, had they stayed loyal and Sang stayed alive, they would have accomplished so much for the Imperium. Unfortunately, it didn't go down that way. Horus finds out about the Blood Angel's gene flaw after seeing him old Yeller one of his own sons, and he promised Sang he wouldn't tell anybody. And we all know how that went.
So that was a fucking lie.
Finally, the fact that they were BFFs made their final confrontation that much more emotional and that much more fucked up. Siege is not the perfect series by any definition of the word, but this really is one of my favorite aspects of it. Sang was whooping ass in Signis Prime, the events of Fear to Tread. Horus, after he switched sides, had him bring his entire legion under the guise of finishing off this enemy Xenos that they defeated together, the Nephilim, and under the even more sketchy guise that there was a cure for the Red Thirst there.
So that was a fucking lie.
Of course, there was nothing but dead worlds, millions of drifting bodies in space, like all folded up like amateur origami, and lots of Slanesh and Cornet demons. Sang loved his bro so much that he believed it wasn't a trap, way past the point that it was too late. It took my boy Amit the Flesh Terror, one of my favorite Blood Angels, to reveal that they'd been betrayed, which Sang did not take well. Then Kabanda confirmed their suspicions. And even though he used it as a chance to take out Sangi's legs from underneath him, it was a great moment for Sang. I mean, it was kind of hokey, don't get me wrong. He was all like, no. But I enjoyed that, though. Also, his fight with Kabanda was sick. Go read Fear to Tread, because that's one of the best parts of the book. It wasn't as low diff as I was led to believe when I first came into the novel, but it was actually a really good back and forth. James Swallow really was cooking his ass off on that one. Sang being the Emperor of Imperium Secundus is one of his more interesting jobs on his resume. Gilly and Lion were at each other's throats, and Sang is the only Primarch that could keep them in line. And he banished the Lion from Secundus for being a dick, which was a baller move, very necessary. I mean, he bombed the planet that Gilliman was on and lied about it. Like, really, Sangi should have beat his ass. And if you think the Lion could take Sangi, you're lying to yourself.
Fool this man!
Sang has some really good dialogue with Kurze. Him and Kurze have the same superpower, though Kurze's sight might actually be a little bit stronger. And this is the only Primarch that Kurze actually likes, which says a lot because Kurze hates everyone and everything, well, except for torturing and killing. It's like his version of Stardew Valley. One of Sang's few mistakes here was actually letting Kurze live. I know he was trying to make a point, but kicking him out into the void, into that deep sleep, really pushed him over the deep end in terms of his insanity. And when he was finally released into the galaxy again, it led to things like the creation of the Screaming Galleries, the most fucked up summer home getaway ever. I mean, the walls and floors are made out of flayed living people. Next, Sanguinius was the MVP of the Siege of Terra. Maybe that could go to Dorn too, because he was the mastermind of the planet's defense, but Sanguinius was out on the front line, beating traitor ass for days and weeks at a time. He was soloing titans, giving wicked speeches, and he was giving the guard power-ups just by looking at him. He was holding entire parts of the wall all by himself. He was just like fighting everything, everywhere, all at the same time. And when the time came, he was like the best bouncer ever at the Eternity Gate. Death Guards, your names are not on the list, unfortunately. Also, you smell like shit. The only reason he didn't solo diff the Saturnine Gambit was because Dan Abnett temporarily nerfed him so that Doran and Garo could get some shine in this book. The warp boosted his powers so that he could like one-way peer into certain trade Primarch's POV, the worst being Angron. See, so that gave him a chance to feel the Butcher's nails, and it completely immobilized him. And I know this video is not about him, but we got to give some props to Angron, because if he can weather these things and Sang couldn't, he's way more endurant than we give him credit for. So after Sang was feeling better, he got his rematch with Kabanda, now known as the Bane of the Ninth Legion, which is a dope-ass nickname. And even though it was a pretty low diff for Sang, Kabanda, I would say it's because Kabanda was playing Final Fight while Sang was playing Mortal Kombat. It's still a very stylish feat. His overkill defeat of Kaba even had Zephon, the bringer of sorrow, like, damn! Right after his fair one of Kabanda, he goes against Demon Angron, which is just straight up one of my favorite fights in 40k. They both kick each other's asses. They're fighting in midair like an actual like angel versus demon, like biblical beef. And they like mortally wounded each other. Sang got skewered with the black sword, and Sang ripped out Angron's dreadlocks and had him screaming for his daddy, which I cannot tell if that's Corn or Big E, but either way, it's still pretty embarrassing. I might be wrong about this, but I think that wound was like slowly killing Sanguinius, and still nothing in the whole solar system could have stepped to him after that. So I really enjoyed Sang's relationship with Dorn. When they got called back to the throne room to get ready for the attack on the Vengeful Spirit, they shared this heartfelt hug because they had both been through so much, and then they both thought that each other deserved the game ball, like doctor kind of moment. And I really love how Dorn acknowledged how much more human Sanguinius is than him. It's so easy for Sang to express emotion and affection, while Dorn is just kind of like this wall. I mean, it represents his battle style, but like he really is unable to open up to those that he loves. You can see it by how he treats a lot of his sons. I also love this part where Dorn noticed that Sang left this bloody handprint on his armor after the hug, showing how much Sang has sacrificed in the defense of the palace. Sang has another baller moment here because Big E says he's going up to the Vengeful Spirit by himself, and Sang straight up to the Emperor's face is just like, no, this is our war too. This is what I'm paraphrasing. This is our war too, and this is what you made us for. And I love Valdor, Vulcan, and Dorn's reactions, because this is the same reaction the World Eaters would have when Karn stands up to Angron. Hilarious to read about. Also, Jimmy Space kind of laments not trusting his sons more. He's just so used to doing everything by himself, and I don't think we would have really gotten anything like this from the Emperor if it weren't for Sang. This man has balls the size of balls moons. Unfortunately, he did not have an amazing showing against Horus. Every good story has to come to its end, and Horus beat Sang like he spent the rest of the rent money investing in Dogecoin. Sang was doing pretty well, but Mr. Abnett went the anime route of, this isn't even my final form, and Horus pulled out the real plot armor to beat his brother and former best friend to death, and have him crucified on the spot, like the Jesus allegory that he is. Poor Sang. Fuck you, Horus. If you were a way better character as a loyalist, you puppet, plot armor, bald bastard. So no offense to my baldies. I know Horus does not represent or speak for the bald community. You may be thinking Sang's death was for nothing, but I disagree. I think not being able to get his brother on his side messed with Horus quite a bit and loosened up the ruinous powers leash on him just a little bit. Because of this, during his battle with Big Imps, he was working harder than ever to try to convert his test tube dad to the traitor side. This stalling gave Big E and his allies enough time to deal the finishing blow to Horus, wound the Chaos Gods, and pull Terra out of the warp. If Sang hadn't sacrificed himself, Big E probably would have died and the galaxy would have had to have faced 10,000 years of darkness. Well, I mean, even darker darkness than they already face. This is a massive W for Sang despite him eating that fat L. The Blood Angels lose their collective minds after this and rapidly develop the Black Rage and the Red Thirst as a result of the shock of the Primarch dying. The Space Marines are many versions of their Gene Fathers, and this just goes to show that Sang had all these traits all the time, and he was just keeping them in check through sheer willpower. This is an awesome feat. Sang noted that he was the mirror version of Russ. Russ, on the outside, is a brutal, animalistic savage, but on the inside, he's quite the sophisticated and intelligent individual. Sang is sophisticated on the outside, but inside, he's just a straight up monster. Also, OG Horus noted that Sang was way less likely to talk and negotiate with the Xenos. Sang usually is just going to put you to the sword. We should keep that in mind whenever we think of Sang as a Cabbage Patch Kid, because in reality, he's a goddamn Chucky doll. Finally, we have our final feat, and this comes from Beyond the Grave. Dante, the Blood Angels chapter master, is about to die at the end of his own book, and he gets a vision of Sanguinius and the Sanguinor, and he's like, oh, it's the Gene Father. After 1,000 years, I can finally die in peace. And Sang says, boy, if you don't get your ass up and get your ass back out there, duty does not end in death. And he's sent screaming back into reality after his one-on-one with the Swarm Lord. Now, this might seem kind of cruel, but Dante goes on to do a lot more awesome stuff in the Grim Darkness, and he is Sang's strongest soldier for sure. The fact that Sang is still popping back up and giving out like revives and stuff is crazy. I feel bad for Dante, but you gotta admit, even 10,000 years later, Sanguinius proves to still be the most useful Primarch. That was the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Is Sanguinius your favorite loyalist Primarch? And if not, what the hell is wrong with you? Do you just not enjoy peak badassery or? Well, anyway, let me know if I missed any crazy stuff the Angel has done in the comments because I would love to know. This is Ave Dominus Noob saying Ave Dominus Nox.